the shortest and the most effective way of reclaiming our country from debt is having an immediate process, and the only process other than now borrowing again or going to do some kind of agriculture or mining, which will take years, is to arrest the situation. And the only way you can arrest the situation is by growing wheat, which is now highly commodified commodity. Markets are available. Europeans have moved to another level where they are selling the product. Countries are legalizing legislation to come up from the pit of poverty. So the best and most reasoned, the most immediate, and through emergency, to redeem the country from debt is by selling the plant. It's easy to grow. It grows only for 4 months, and the products that come in are highly needed for industrialization purposes. For example, wheat in itself does not need fertilizer. It's a natural phenomenon. It's a natural gift from God. And secondly, it does not need a lot of land. You can even grow it in the house. It grows in the bushes, and Kenya has got one of the best climates in the world, especially the Mount Kenya region, Kisii, Nyamira, as well as pockets of Western Province, the Bunyore. So what's the problem of selling it because the price is so high? This notion of people saying that is going to be used to kill the children or to kill society is an illusion which was brought in by the colonial masters when they came in and they found out that Africa was very rich in everything. But because they came in with the decolonization to colonize Africans so that they can think in their own way, having made up with the Bretton Woods institutions, the IMF, the World Bank, the World Trade Organization, they did not consider any economic interests of African people. Africans to them were to be patronized. Africans to them were to be a privilege of religion. And when they came in with their religion, they pacified Africans and repugnated most of the regulations, most of the traditions that we had. One of the traditions was actually hemp tradition, which even the Chinese, you can remember the Chinese during the Chinese Opium War. Why did they have to fight? Why was that war? People say it was because of poverty. It was not poverty. It was the Chinese telling their leaders that, look, this thing has been in our tradition for so many years. Foreigners are coming in to tell us not to grow it. And if you look at that war, you find out why it started and who brought it in. It was the British. So what I'm trying to say in short to answer your question is the most immediate need to bring out Kenya from the Chinese hands who are decolonizing Africa is to pay them their debt and to ask them to leave. But before we pay, we want to find out from the contracts that they signed what was the collateral. That's the key. If Mombasa Port was part of the collateral, then we are finished. We have already lost our ocean to the Somalis because of ignorance and bad and poor quality of leadership in this country. Lack of leadership has made this country to be a pariah state, to be a poverty-oriented state. So we need to do something, and we need to do it very urgently. Now, if we come to a second tier, of which I've had another presidential candidate saying that we will recoup the monies, put people in jail, recoup their properties, and then use that money to pay the debt, that is an archaic thinking. How much money will you be able to recoup when the country is losing its revenue every day by relying on borrowing 2 billion shillings every day? First of all, there will be no corruption. People will be allowed to grow. We shall put regulations into place to allow Kenyans to grow it, to follow guidelines that will be there by that particular time, and to have the market ready for export. Market ready for export, and whatever the Europeans do with it is their own business. If they want to smoke it all before they do what they want to do with it, is fine. What we want is money, to put money in the Kenyans' pockets, to make this country rich, to make this country economically viable, to make this country independent of debt burdens. Yeah, because the CIA and the FBI have formed a ring in those countries to kill the weed. But you should also distinguish that in Colombia has a problem with the drug cocaine. Cocaine. I'm not talking about cocaine or coca. I'm talking about marijuana. If you go to Venezuela, they have oil, and they also have got marijuana. If you go to Afghanistan, they have both marijuana and cocaine. I'm not talking of cocaine. So if you go into that angle, yes, you should distinguish and shift the paradigm from cocaine to marijuana. And if you go to Jamaica, there's civility in Jamaica. You've never had Jamaica becoming a pariah state, because people believe in what God has given them. God says that he loves everything that he has created, and therefore a human being is obligated to love what God has created, and marijuana is part of God's plan. And if you go into the Bible historically, you'll find out that it was used by the Sadducees, Pharisees, and even the prophets to heal, to reconcile. If you go into the Mosaic law, you find out that during the expedition of the Jews, the Judaists, when they were on the journey to Egypt and back to Egypt, you find evidence that has come to being that was also used for medicinal purposes. If you look at Jesus himself, he never said anything about marijuana, but there was a lady there. People call people prostitute. I don't levelize women and tag them with the names of a prostitute, but the Bible says a prostitute. There's a lady, a woman, who loved Jesus. She looked at him to save him, but she had a very expensive perfume, which was made out of marijuana, and Jesus accepted that. So it's not something that the issues that we have today are bred up in Europe. When the Europeans came and they saw that Africans could develop, and Africa was very rich, in the words of Rodney, they wanted to underdevelop Africa, and that's why they killed off leaders like myself who wanted to bring justice to the African people. So why would they come and tell us that that was wrong, and now they're legalizing it, and now they're telling people that, you know what, it's now good. But then pharmaceuticals have an interest in the whole thing, and they're lobbying very seriously to have it patented, if not patented, so that they can have exclusive possession of marijuana. That's why I want to protect it, so that it becomes a Kenyan product. First of all, a constitution is a very good thing, and it's meant to serve those who have come in with the phraseology of we the people in the preamble. But when you see a constitution which derails morality and derails the will of the people, then that constitution can be abrogated. There are countries that are doing without constitutions. I'm not saying I'm going to ban the constitution. I'm going to suspend it so that I'll go back to the Kenyans to ask them to pick up what they want and pick up what they don't want. Israel today is doing without a constitution, written constitution. And they had one before, they had a draft in 1948 before they occupied where they are today. But when they went to Parliament to legislate on it, parliamentarians came in and said, to hell with it. We have the Bible here. We have a way of life in Judah. We have Torah laws. Let us follow what has been there, and let us progress with it as we discuss our issues. Let us look at the case law, the pronouncements of academics, and let us go in, discuss it as we move on. When the right time comes, then probably we can have it. And Israel has been flourishing without a written constitution. And of course today, this the best, it serves the best interest of the Jewish people wherever they are. And that's why you see that the world is being ruled by the Jewish people. People like Disraeli, the former Prime Minister of England, was Jewish. Margaret Thatcher was a Jew, and what have you. But now, if you look at New Zealand, it doesn't have a written constitution. If you look at Canada, it doesn't have a written constitution. But above all, Britain, which gave us the so-called constitution through the Lancaster conferences, they wrote something for us to follow. But they don't have a constitution. They lead on conventions. So it's really a must that we must have something written. But the Parliament will be there to look at what will be available by that time as Kenyans look into it. And one of the reasons that we have to suspend this constitution is A lot of the wordings in the Constitution, in a 264 page, are alien. People are just asked to say yes or no. Did they discuss it? But this time I'm going to give people an opportunity to discuss it and chart the way forward. Look at the judiciary. It's a rotten and egoistic kind of platform that we have. Judges can do anything they have. They have derailed President Uhuru's tenure as a president. Anything the president comes out with, somebody runs to court, they put it on hold. Fair enough, that if that's the administration of justice. But look at the case of Chicken Gate case, IBC issue on Chicken Gate. The case involved Kenyans and Brits. Brits were taken in, they were charged and sentenced. They finished their sentence and they're out. Kenyan, because of corruption in the courts, everything is being adjourned every day. Do I, as Professor Wajackoyah, want to continue that kind of constitution, which will actually derail what I want to be done and what the people of this country want to be done? I will have to suspend it and then ask Kenyans to come and review. Why did they come in and take over our country and take collateral? If they are a superpower and they want to help us, fine. But what I'm trying to say, which people are not understanding, and that's why we need a lot of education and maybe people to go out of the country and see how systems work. I'm talking of the sovereignty and interference of the political sovereignty of the country. I'm also talking of interfering with the economic takeover by this. Where is the criteria? Why would we have somebody to come and work in our country without knowing our language? Come on, let's have a break here. Why are we just some kind of mandazis to be put, to be seasoned and then with chai and what have you? Let us look at our sovereignty. Look at how many people have been put out of employment, for example. That short piece of metal from Mombasa to Naivasha, which has become whatever you want to name it, how many businesses has it put it out? Transport business from coast to what have you. Why are we closing our industries? Especially people who have taken collateral and taken loans to do transportation business or infrastructure businesses. That's where my ball of contention is. Why should we have monopoly that now things have to be carried to be taken and then now transporters from Uganda to come and pick them up from Naivasha? Who made that decision? Were Kenyans asked? And to whose interest was that decision made? That's why I'm saying we have to look in this contract. And if we find out that they're void, I, as the president, I will apply the ethics of the emblem of sovereignty and tell them no. This is harmful to our business. It's harmful to our nation. Look at the police, for example. Where are those uniforms coming from? Who gave that idea? Why is it that when you go to China, you see those police officers in China in blue uniforms? You go to Zambia, you see police officers in Zambia in blue uniform, where the Chinese influence has been. You go to Bangladesh, not Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, you find the same thing. What is it? Why would we be told to teach our kids Mandarin? Why can't we do it voluntarily? Why would we put it in the syllabus and then tell us that we need to learn it? If you go to Zambia, in Lusaka today, they have taken over even the national newspaper, and now part of it is being printed in Mandarin. If you come here and you're telling our children to go to school to study Mandarin as an option, that's an indirect way of decolonizing, so that when they grow up, in the same way British introduced English, now to have us to depend on them in their language, and then we take our kids to London to get scholarships. The Chinese are now going to take that and to use that as an advantage of taking our children to China to study, giving them grants to study, that when they come up, they are fully colonized. And that vicious circle is what I'm trying to tell Kenyans, no, let us decide on our own. India decides on it is non-aligned to the philosophies from outside the world. And that's why India does very well economically, it does very well politically, because they looked at the British and they told the British, no, if you go to India, you find out that India comes first and Indians come second. You come to Kenya, you find that capitalism comes first and then Kenyans come last, and the thieving in between is so synonymous to corruption that we have to end up something. I've never been controversial, not unless where somebody says, this is wrong, you are corrupt, you should be hanged. Is that really controversial? I'm just trying to tell Kenyans, look, where we are at the moment, something ought to be done. If it was in West Africa, some people would have been shot. We have had coup d'etats in West Africa to sensitize West Africans because of what was happening. In Ghana, how many coups have we had? There's a time when Jerry Rawlings had to shoot some of the judges because of what they were doing to the Ghanaian people. Ghana now has a democracy. People are afraid to steal. What can we do to make people afraid to steal from our Kenyan people? If Belgium yesterday passed legislation to legalize 4 days, Britain has passed legislation, Czech Republic has passed legislation, so that they can actually bring in the 24-hour economy. But my model is not based on that. My model is based on equity. Muslims are become very deprived when you look at the equitable justification of the remedies available for their holidays. Lunch hour is supposed to be lunch hour. Muslims go to lunch are supposed to go to lunch for 1 hour, but that's the same hour that they go to the mosque. Let us give them freedom on Friday, that they can worship. Let's give 70 days Adventist freedom on Saturday and others on Sunday, so that families can come in, unite families, give an opportunity to divorced parents to commingle and bond with their children, give opportunities to single mothers, to do single working mothers, to do what they can to do to plan their families, and also give some kind of leeway to the employers and employees, in that when you go home, you shut off your phone unless it's an emergency or unless it is in service industry, so that people can have complete freedom. A lot of things are not working well. People are tired. How do you work from Monday to Friday? Then on Saturday, you have to do other things. When do you bond with your children? On Sunday, you have to go and worship the Lord. We need that time. Nowadays, with the metric system, we can come up and apply modern technology, work from home, reduce working hours. That time you're going to work, it should be computed so that you actually become productive. Also, it's very difficult for somebody who commutes every day from Kangemi to Kiambu to work, to and fro, 2 hours, 4 hours every day, and then the fatigue in this person is just enormous. So let us also do what other people are doing. If Europe is doing it, why not us? Well, I've eaten everything that I can mention. I've eaten beans. I know how beans smell. I grew up in the streets, and I know what street life is. And that's why I'm pained when I see people stealing from small children, when people are not taking care of the street kids, and because they say there's no money, what have you. I mean, I matured very fast when I was young. I was matured on the street, how to take care of myself, and I became a man earlier than before I became a man. I'm married to my most beautiful wife and have children. She lives in the US, she works in the US, in the airline industry. She's an American. Our kids are in Britain, born and raised in Britain, and I speak to my wife every day. I ask her for advice. Even coming here to ask her, I said, honey, what do we do? She said, well, aren't you tired? I said, if I become tired, then what will happen if I become head of state? So she said, go on. So I have mentorship programs even in my law firm for young lawyers. I take some of them, those who are extremely good, I promote them, pay their fees to university to do their masters. And I've done it, and I encourage young people to come up in an upright way, not to have a lot of cosmetics, because the mindset of young people is destroyed completely on corruption.